Welcome to Layered Lives, a podcast of thoughtful conversations with women about the complexity of modern womanhood, from work, tech, identity, health, and the moments that shape us. In a world full of polarised narratives, it makes time for real lives told honestly in all their layers. I'm your host, Jenny Evans, and I hope these conversations resonate and help you make sense of the complexity we're all living with. Hi, welcome to Layered Lives. This is a podcast about thoughtful conversations on work, tech, health, relationships, identity, and everything in between. So today we have Kimmy Lac, who is a dear friend of mine, a colleague, and an all-round awesome human being. Kimmy, you're also a communications expert. I'm currently at IBM. So to start off, welcome. And thank you for being part of Layered Lives. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you came from, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny, for having me. So my name is Kimmy. I'm 25 years old and I'm Vietnamese American. Right now, I am in Southern California, born and raised, and I'm located right now in Orange County. Jenny's my wonderful manager at IBM. So I'm a communications content manager under IBM at the HashiCorp team. So doing a lot of external communications, executive communications, and just like all things content, which is super fun. I went to college at UC Riverside, which is also in Southern California. I went there for media and cultural studies and also did a minor in marketing. So I have a big marketing background from school and just like different clubs and organizations I was in. And as for work, I've been working full time at HashiCorp/IBM for about like 4 or 5 years now. So I would say I'm still quite early in my career. And outside of work, I love being active. I really enjoy hot yoga, climbing. I'm trying to get more into snowboarding lately too, but still an amateur. But yeah, it's a little bit about me, like work-wise and personal.
Thank you. And that was, you told me something which I didn't know about you. I didn't realize that you actually studied cultural studies.
Yes,
Because I was
yes.
going to ask you, like, you know, if someone met you, what would surprise them about you? And like, you've just right off the bat told me something which was really surprising. So how has studying cultural like studies impacted where you are now? I just find it
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, so I think my major media and cultural studies, like I mean, it's self-explanatory, like we analyze media and culture and kind of like the intersection of that. And I think personally, it taught me a lot about media literacy and just kind of looking at things from like a critical lens, not taking anything that we see in the media like at face value, but kind of digging a little bit deeper and thinking about, what does this actually mean? What does this say about like the place that the world is in? Like, what does this
Mhm.
say about like, who it's coming from? I think it's taught me a lot about critical thinking and just like kind of going deeper. And I try to like apply that now, like for work. But to be honest, like everything that I've done in work is almost nothing like what I've learned in
Really? Yeah.
school. Yeah, I think it is a helpful like knowledge and background to have.
Yeah. Well, and also like working in the industry we do, like in tech,
Yeah,
like you do have to navigate everything in like world politics as well. So I suppose it kind
yeah,
of all fits together, doesn't it?
definitely.
But also touching on that, on your interest in culture, you've come from a Vietnamese immigrant family, obviously
hmm
born and raised in America, but like how has that background and your family sort of shaped the way you see work and the way you've sort of managed responsibility and your life? Like I find that
hmm
really interesting how you've balanced like the two cultures together and blended it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely had a huge impact on how I see like work, success, responsibility, like literally everything. And being between like both cultures it's a huge privilege because I have, I guess, backgrounds from, both parts of me, but also too, like it's also a lot to just like unpack in general. And I think a lot of people who have kind of a similar background to me could probably relate. But for some context, my parents came to America as refugees from the Vietnam War. They've had like crazy stories on how they got here. I've
Mhm.
told you a little bit about this, Jenny, in the past, but my
Yeah.
dad, he was transported to so many different refugee camps in Southeast Asia, like before he got to America. And my mom, when she escaped from Vietnam, she was actually put in like Vietnamese like war prison like for 6 months and lived in there with her family
Wow.
and her friends. It was crazy. But
Mhm.
obviously now like they're citizens in America. They've been living in America longer than they've been living in Vietnam at this point.
Mhm.
But that kind of like sacrifice and struggle, it's something that I'm constantly reminded of. And I'm so grateful that, of course, they came to America to give me a better life. But I think also to remembering like that sacrifice and the struggle that they went
Yeah.
through, it's a lot of pressure on me. And
Mhm.
also, being an only child and a woman with that, like
Mhm.
there's just so much to unpack there about the pressures of
Mm.
that immigrant parents can have on you.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot, and it put a lot of I would say it kinda lit a fire under me to, perform well in school,
Mhm.
my career, and, like, going to college and stuff because it kinda was like, if I'm not performing well, like, no one else is going to, I guess, kinda help me because my parents didn't
Mm.
have that same educational background, just historical context of living in America and all these different,
Mm.
like, nuances about American culture.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was, like, a huge impact on my life, and it still is, like, every single
Yeah.
day.
And I suppose that's one layer on top of the ordinary pressure that young people have and young women have in
Mhm.
their lives anyway. I feel it, the constant pressure to perform, the constant pressure to push
Yeah.
further and go further all the time and better myself because that's the society we live in. And it's all around us, isn't it? Like with social media, it just doesn't stop. I thank you for sharing that about your parents' background. I just think it's incredible. Maybe we should get your mum on this podcast as well. It'd be so interesting to hear like her
Yeah.
stories and her perspective. But like you said, it still influences you now. Do you think it will for the rest of your life? Is it just a constant driver that you know where your parents have come from? So you're constantly driven to make the most out of your life and that will be it, I guess, forever.
Mhm.
Do you think that that is your core identity?
Yeah, I think it's definitely I mean, it's a huge part of my identity now, and again, I'm so grateful to have that kind of, like, background, and I'm so grateful for the sacrifices that they made, but also too, it can almost be I don't know if, like, suffocating is, like, the right word. That constant pressure all the time,
Mm.
constantly having to perform, constantly
Mm.
having to, trying to always do your best and, like, always trying to be successful. I'm super grateful for where I'm at right now, but also too, I think in Vietnamese culture, your successes are so much attached to your identity. And I think
Mm.
my parents definitely grew up in that kind of way where they did really care about, what other people thought of them or like
Mhm.
saw them as or perceived them as. So I definitely think that, again, a ton of pressure. And I'm trying to separate myself from that today because I definitely think work is a huge part of my identity.
Yeah.
And like being so early in my career, I guess like this is the most time like I'll be like super invested in my career. Like right now is a time to really grind and like put in
Mhm.
the work in. But also too, I'm trying to discover more of who I am outside
Yeah.
of work, trying to invest more in my hobbies because yeah, I just can't help that, the way I grew up, like
Yeah.
my achievements or my accomplishments that defines my identity, but I'm trying to separate it a little
Yeah.
bit more, if that makes
Yeah.
any
Of
sense.
course. And
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of pressure is good, right? I mean,
Mhm.
because it does give you, I guess, that little kick up the butt sometimes. But like
Yeah.
how you also need to balance that with some chill time as well. Like you
Mhm.
said, trying to separate it out. And there's got to be a part of you which is also not that high pressure go all the time. So I know, like you said, you do climbing and yoga. What kind of advice, I guess, would you give to someone who is, had the same experience of you or in the same position, which feels pressure? And it doesn't matter if it's from parents or from just society or from their children or from their partner or whatever. Pressure is
Mhm.
pressure. What kind of advice would you give them to help them separate themselves and something which is less pressured?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like for me, what really helped, first of all, what like I kind of realized after working for, a couple years, like in the workforce and just like in tech is that like you are gonna have a lot of time outside of work yeah, you're gonna have
Yeah.
a lot of time outside of work. I think before, like as a student, I feel like being a student is almost more consuming in a
Mm-hmm.
way because it's just like that is like literally your world. You are living at school. You are constantly surrounded by everything about like school and college. But with work, it's kind of like when it's, 5 o'clock or whatever time, like you finish work, like you turn off your laptop or your computer and you have all the rest of, the time like in your day to kind of figure out like, okay, like what am I kind of gonna do
Yeah.
now? So I think what's been helpful for me is having like a routine. And I think I found a lot of, I guess, I feel like I blew off a lot of steam like from the workday, like from working
Mhm.
out. I really never had any kind of like fitness routine like in school or in college or anything like that. And I think after working for a couple years now, I feel like having something to do that's very consistent, like after work, I think that's kind
Mhm.
of helped me find a bigger balance and help me again like blow off some steam a little bit. But
Mhm.
again, like I mean that's like kind of like something that I've invested in. So I
Yeah.
would recommend to other people like find something after work that, you look forward to doing and try to find something at outside of work that can also be part of your identity, not just like, your career or, how you did that day or um
Mm.
like what your performance was or that
Yeah.
day or that week or whatever. And yeah, it's still like a constant struggle for me too because I mean, with work, like, still being a huge part of my identity, sometimes if I, like, have a bad day at work, it's just like, "Okay, I'm a terrible person, like, I can't do anything." Like, I just, like, kinda
Yeah.
catastrophize, like, in that way.
Mhm.
So, yeah, having something to look forward to, I think, outside of work and investing in yourself and finding hobbies that, like,
Mhm.
you're passionate about,
Yeah.
that's been super helpful for me.
Yeah, and it kind of anchors your own identity and
Yeah.
everything, and I appreciate, like, some people have different lives, and it can be hard to find the time to do stuff, but I
Mhm.
I do exactly the same. I need to have something which
Yeah.
is just my own, like, which is outside of work, outside of family, because it keeps us sane, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but talking about work, and you said,
Mhm.
it's a massive part of who you are, of your identity, especially at the moment. You're still young and you're still forging your career and kind of working out maybe what you want still.
Mhm.
Like, what has been the most surprising thing of your career journey so far?
I think what the most surprising thing of my career journey has been so far, I think it's just like how different like I thought like working would
Mhm.
be. I thought like working would be a little bit more of like a traditional environment like what you kind of see in the movies of like, everyone's just so like constantly like locked in like into
Mhm.
work and like work is just like such a huge part of their lives. So again, like kind of going back to what I said earlier, work is just a part of your life and not
Yeah.
all consuming and not the whole thing.
Mhm.
And I thought work would be a bigger part of my lives just because the way that my family grew up, my parents had
Mhm.
to work a lot to provide for me because they didn't have a college background or
Mhm.
like a formal education or anything. I think that they worked like pretty difficult jobs where they were doing, manual labor and they weren't, you know,
Mhm.
sitting at a desk all day and just like typing and stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of why like I thought work would kind of be a bigger part of my life than
Mhm.
it is today because of the way that my parents were.
Yeah.
So I think that's been like the most surprising thing. I think
Yeah.
another surprising thing too is just like kind of how different it is from like school. I think like in
Mhm.
college it was a lot of listening, taking it
Mhm.
in and kind of like doing your own like I guess like internal analyzation of what you thought of like the lesson or the subject or
Mhm.
whatever. For work, I didn't expect having to speak up so much all the time and
Mhm.
having to voice your mind and having to voice your opinions. And not only do I think like it's different from school in that way, but also again, like going back to, Vietnamese culture and just like Asian culture in general, I
Yeah.
think we're very conditioned to just like listen, sit back, like respect our elders, respect the adults in the room and not say anything at all. So I think the cultural difference too of having to speak up a lot more and like make sure my voice is heard, that's something
Mhm.
that I still feel like I am working through a lot of today and kind of
Yeah.
like encouraging myself to do just because it's so different again like from how I grew up. And I think I've heard it from a lot of Asian Americans like just like online that I see who are also working similar careers. So I definitely think it's a shared experience that a lot of people have as well.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
mean, but do you also think that the impact of technology has almost made that more difficult as well, because you're not just expected to now just turn up in an office and be there for a couple of hours and I guess perform. You're expected to be constantly online. Like it's never ending. You've got your
Yeah.
phone, and then people can access you in so many different ways. It's like you can never switch off, and like you can never take, like I find that time to reflect on like what you've actually said and done, because it's just like constant go, 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 go. And I
Yeah.
find that's been really hard. I mean, do you think that maybe that has impacted how you feel about having to speak up more because it's just relentless?
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just like verbal communication, like in
Mm,
meetings, right? Like it's emails, it's Slack messages, like it's endless. Like
yeah.
there's so much. So learning how to kind of hone in my skills, like public speaking, but also like in writing as well, having to be
Mhm.
like super clear and concise. Like that's something that I never really expected to do, like in the
Yeah.
working world, and also too, I never thought that I would be working a remote job either. So that like
Mm,
kind of amplifies like, having to not only speak up like in meetings, but also like in written communication as well.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean like it's a lot and something that I didn't really grow up doing. So it's definitely a skill that I think I'm gonna have to learn like for a
Mhm.
lifetime. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But then like also I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm like older generation from you in terms of, I think the biggest difference is the fact that I didn't grow up with social media, like or telephones and things like that. But your generation was probably the first one to
Yeah.
have social media constantly and never know anything different. So like how has that shaped, I guess, your confidence as well and
Hmm.
your self-image? Like how different is it to always be accessible online, not just at work, but socially as well, and like how you present yourself. And like
Hmm.
you said, it's not just in emails, like even in virtual Zoom meetings and stuff, you always have to look switched on, look engaged. And it's difficult, especially
Yeah.
when it's like across the camera. Like, how has that shaped who you are and your confidence? Like, is that
Yeah.
something you're still working on?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I'm still working on for sure. I mean, growing up, like as a child of the internet, basically, like I'm an only child. So I was like raising myself like with my computer, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, having that much access to the internet, I think definitely like impacted me a lot. And I think just like probably the biggest thing that I can think of that had like an impact on me was like representation for sure. Like
Hmm.
I never really saw people that look like me in the media, so it
Yeah.
definitely, like, I think took a hit to, like, my self-confidence and, like,
Hmm.
just, like, how I, like, perceive myself. I think also too, like, for additional context, where I grew up, like, there were not a lot of people that looked like me. I was, like, one of the only Asian girls, like,
Hmm.
in my elementary school, one of few Asian people, like, at my high school even too. I
Yeah.
didn't really see people who looked like me until like I went to college. So having all of those like formative years, like between elementary school and high school, where you're not really seeing anyone that like
Hmm.
looks like you, like that has a huge effect on like how
Hmm.
I even like think of myself and see myself today.
Hmm.
Yeah, and even at work too, I would say like we do work with a good amount of like people of many different backgrounds and stuff, but still it's just like there's still never going to be, a huge amount of people that look like me and that's just the
Yeah.
reality.
Hmm.
So, like it definitely makes me think like, oh, like can I even see myself in this kind of
Hmm.
higher up position because that person doesn't look like me. And even seeing
Hmm.
it like and online too, like you're not going to I still don't really see that many people that look like me, like, just, like, in traditional media and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I suppose
it's a lot.
people that are online, they're all carefully curated, edited,
Mhm.
makeup and everything else. So it's not real life anyway. So
Yeah.
you can't win, can you? It's
No, you
difficult.
can. You really can, and I constantly, like, find myself comparing myself to, like, other people or just, like, people that I know or, like, even
Yeah.
friends, like, because obviously people don't really tend to show the really bad parts of their lives or things that
Mhm.
they're struggling with. I mean, I don't. So,
Mhm.
I don't blame other people for, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like people in my generation are constantly comparing themselves to other people. And I feel like that constant comparison is really tiring.
Mm.
So I think I'm trying to be better about like, being off my phone more, being
Mhm.
on social media less, because I definitely think like the more I'm on social media, honestly, sometimes like the worse I
Mhm.
feel. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a struggle because it's so much a part of our identities, in my generation, but also trying to detach from it so that we can, just like have a better mindset about it is really tough.
What would you want to say to other generations to help them understand what that is like? Because I try and, speak to my parents, for example, and they
Hmm.
they have no concept. Like my grandmother, she never even went on the internet ever in her life.
Yeah.
Like she just would not. She was like, no, I'm not interested. So like how would you even try and get them to understand like what it's like, the pressure and like feeling like you have to be always on, and also balancing like what to share? Like you're always
Hmm.
trying to share this carefully curated like persona of yourself, but is that the right thing? Or should we all just like rebel and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know what the answer is, Kimmy, but like
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I that's a really good question. I think that honestly, I feel like it's pretty difficult to explain to people in my generation or people to explain in like older generations or even like my parents. Like, I don't think I've ever spoken to, my parents about, what I'm putting on the internet or like
Yeah.
spoken to older generations of like what I choose and don't choose to put on the internet. But I guess I would say like what I guess I would try to explain it as, what I said earlier, people are only going to put like the super positive things that
Uh-huh.
are happening in their lives. And
Uh-huh.
you're never going to see someone, in my case, I'm never going to really see someone on my feed post about something that they're really struggling about, like maybe like mental health or I
Mhm.
don't know, job loss or anything like that. Like you're not going to see that.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think it's created such a huge illusion about like, everyone's just like so happy and their lives are perfect and everything.
Mhm.
And even though we tell ourselves like that's not the actual reality, it's still very difficult to shake. Because we're constantly just seeing this
Mhm.
vision of like a perfect life.
Perfection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfection,
Yeah.
basically. And do you
Mhm.
do you like what about with your friends? Do you talk about
Mhm.
it with them and just say, "Actually, I didn't really have a good time last week,
Mhm.
and can we talk about it?" Or do you think it stops those conversations anyway because you just want everyone to assume you're okay because your friends, like, are
Mm.
going on your Instagram or your TikTok and, like, that's what they think happened during your week when actually maybe you didn't have a good week? Or is it
Yeah.
not like that?
I don't think it's like that. I think if I'm just like having a bad day or if I like went on like a trip that like I don't know, like I just like I mean, I'm also contributing to the problem, right? Because I'm not gonna post about if I had, like, a shitty time somewhere, or, like, if I went on a trip and, like, I didn't have a good time. Honestly, I'm probably posting just, like,
Yeah,
probably the really good stuff about that trip. I'm not gonna share, like, "Oh,
the crap.
like, I had, like, a shit time," or "I had,
Yeah,
like, a
I
fight with,
fell
like, my
over.
friends," or something, or
Yeah.
yeah, I'm also part of the problem, but
Yeah, we all
yeah.
are. But I know it's annoying because it's we're our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I don't know what the solution is, but I think
Yeah.
being honest about it, I guess, is a good start.
Mhm.
This is kind of like a little bit of a segue. What are your
Uh-huh.
thoughts around AI, for example, and like
Mhm.
how that is impacting your life and how you see the world, or how like, building your own brand as well? Like, do you?
Mhm.
Because I'm fascinated by AI. I just think we're going to get to a point where we don't even know what's human created anymore, or
Yeah.
AI created, and it's going to be like this echo chamber that like, AI is just going to create AI content based on AI, and it's going to be infinite regression. Yeah, I'm interested to see what
Yeah.
what your sort of views are on it.
Yeah, I mean, first I will say like AI has been like super helpful to me at work and I'm really grateful to
Mhm.
be on a team where like using AI is kind of like encouraged in a way to help be like a productivity tool and also just like a brainstorming tool as well. I saw like a really interesting take on LinkedIn about how in like 2024 you had to kind of pretend like you weren't
Yeah.
using AI, and now in 2025 and going into 2026 it's like everyone should be using
Mhm.
AI and everyone should be, leveraging AI to like perform like really well at work. And I think we're going to continue to see more of the mindset where people are encouraging their teams to use AI more often in their work to kind of just like boost productivity and like work even faster. And I
Mhm.
think that's super exciting, but also too, I think it's exciting, like, work-wise that we're so encouraged to do that, but on a personal level, like, I'm personally very scared about, what AI does for our generation and just, like, for future generations growing up because even today, like, the last time I went back home, like, I caught, like, my dad looking at videos that he thought were real, and then I looked back at it and it actually was
Yeah.
AI, so I'm worried about how it's gonna affect older generations, about
Mm-hmm.
how it's gonna affect, misinformation and that spreading. And kind of in the political climate that America is kind of in right now, I'm really worried about AI
Mm-hmm.
creating manufactured images or manufactured, just like news stories or text. Like I'm super worried
Yeah.
about that. And I think it's going to be even more difficult for people to discern what is real and what is not. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it is very important, like in this time and age, for people to have like that kind of media literacy and like really think critically about what they're actually looking at
Mm-hmm.
and what they're actually reading. So I
Yeah.
think like again, like in a work sense, I'm excited for it to, help me do my job better. But personally, like I am very nervous about what AI is
Mm.
going to do for our future. And I definitely
Yeah.
think there needs to be more rules and regulations about what's being
Mm-hmm.
created. Because even like we've seen people use AI for like literally the most like evil, worst things ever, generating pictures of like women, like nude.
Yeah.
Like we need to
Mm-hmm.
find some kind of like
Yeah.
way to regulate that because
Yeah.
I don't know how like the pace of AI is going faster than, the pace of
Yeah.
like
The
leaders can
ethical
like even
framework.
regulate.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I
So,
100% agree. Yeah. And
yeah,
you cannot tell the difference. I can't tell the difference sometimes between
it's
an
hard.
AI picture and a video. It's scary. Like it really is.
Mhm,
And I suppose we're going to get to a point where there's going to be, more and more people who are victims of, nefarious stuff
mhm,
with AI. And it's really sad, but it's
yeah,
something which, you know, it's not even maybe our generations are going to have to deal with the worst of it. It's, the ones coming up behind you,
yeah,
because the genie's out the bottle and there's, we're not going to be able to go back
yeah,
unless something's done quite urgently, which I don't think it is. Thank you so much for sharing everything around your thoughts around AI and social
yeah.
media. I think it's such a fascinating topic and we could probably talk about it for hours. But just to, close up and sort of reflect on the conversation we had based on everything that you've experienced, whether it's from, your background with your parents and growing up in America or
Mhm.
social media, early careers, is there something that you wish that young women today are unfairly judged for and that needs to change?
That's a really good question. I tried to like reflect on um this question a little bit when you first shared it with me. And to be honest, like I just feel like well, first off, I think there's like so much to unpack about like
Hmm.
what young women are like unfairly judged for. I think like I can speak from it from like just like a Gen Z like point of
Yeah,
view, but
go for it.
I think today, I think we've talked about this before, kind of the trend of like the lazy girl
Hmm.
job and stuff like that. And I think people had a maybe a misinterpretation of kind of like what the lazy girl job
Hmm.
kinda meant. I think in today's, I guess, like, political and economic
Hmm.
climate in the US, I think people in my generation and, women too are placing less value on work and kind of climbing the corporate ladder. And it's not to
Hmm.
say that people in my generation or women who are around the same age as me are lazy. I think people are just realizing that work is probably not the most important thing happening in
Yeah.
their lives. And especially, like, with just everything going on, I think we've discovered that there are much bigger
Hmm.
issues kind of at hand. So I think people are placing less value on work, but I don't think that necessarily makes people lazy. I think people are in my generation are just trying to find more of a work life balance. And I think
Hmm.
more people are trying to view their careers as something that funds their lifestyle and, helps them, to have experiences and live the life that they want to make them happy. And
Hmm.
I think it's not to say people aren't working super hard in their jobs. I think people are just placing less of their identity like grounded in their careers and more just trying to do things that make them happy
Yeah.
because yeah, with just the state of everything, I think we've realized that, life is too short and
It is. Yeah.
there's a lot more pressing issues in the world than what's happening at work. So
Hmm.
I think that's why people are placing a little bit less value on kind of the rat race and more of just like, what can I do in my career that, sustains my lifestyle and makes me happy, I guess, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. And I think that's a really, really healthy outlook because, like, I think I've spent far too much of my life being obsessed with being busy and wearing it as a badge of honor,
Mhm.
you know, working myself to the bone and working all hours thinking I must be doing better because I'm so tired and exhausted and I'm so busy.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I am being more successful. In fact, it's much more hard to take a step back and reflect and go, well, actually, I'm only going to do an hour's overtime rather than doing 10, 20, and
Yeah.
focus on stuff that makes you happy because
Mhm.
you're going to be more productive at work anyway. So it's
Yeah,
counterintuitive. And
definitely.
like you said, life is too short and there is much more to life than work. And as long as you have enough to sustain yourself and you're being a good person, I don't think that is being lazy and I don't think it
Yeah.
should be negative. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing your perspective.
Yeah.
That's great. So is there anything else in 2026? What do you think the biggest challenges are as a woman? Can you think of one particular thing which is really grating on you or
Hmm.
you think really needs to change?
I don't know.
Too many things.
I think honestly, there is too many things. I think there's a lot of like double standards, I think,
Mhm.
for women in the workplace. I think I've seen like a bunch of stuff about, like taking care of your appearance. Like, women are, so much more subjected to, looking a lot more presentable in the workplace than men.
Yeah.
So I think like let's put less, I guess, value in women on, how they look. But I mean that's like an ever like a
Yeah.
forever I think it'll be like a forever issue,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Or I've also, seen a lot of stuff about women being like people call women being like overly emotional in the workplace. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that as well. It's been like this forever, like, women must always look nice. It's been like this forever myth that women are more emotional than men. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, no, I I think human beings are, innately emotional. Like
Yeah.
it's not a man or a woman thing. I think it's just another way of putting women down. And it
Yeah.
needs to stop. So,
Yeah. It's just another way to like police women, I think.
mhm.
And yeah, it's I mean, I would consider myself like a super emotional person as well. And I feel like in calls sometimes that we've had together, like we can tell like, if one of us is getting like very worked up about something or very like, passionate about something. And I don't think it's a bad thing
No.
to be like emotional about because that means like you're invested in and you care.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like the conversation just might be more of like find the right safe space and the right person for you to express your
Mhm.
emotions freely in the workplace. But yeah, I don't think being emotional is in the workplace is a bad thing. I think it just means you care and you're passionate and you're
Yeah,
invested.
and you're present. Think yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Zen. And lastly, what would you say to your future self?
I think
One
I
bit of
would like
advice.
to say to my future self, maybe just
Yeah.
like a reminder of, like my with my background and stuff, like I feel like I worked really hard to get to where I'm at today. So I think I want to just like continue giving myself credit for that because I think sometimes I downplay it a lot, but it definitely
Mhm.
was difficult. And while I did, have support from so many different people in my life, I think ultimately, I mean, it comes down to you, right? So I
Mhm.
think I would give myself credit for that. And I want to continue to remind my future self, like, we worked really hard to get here. I think I also want to tell my future self, like, I hope that she remembers to, honor her dreams and keep going for them. And yeah, like if you like commit myself to my dreams and don't forget what my actual, I guess, goals. I don't
Yeah.
know how to say this. I just,
You're saying it just fine. I know exactly. You're saying it
I,
just fine.
yeah, I just want to tell myself like, oh, I hope you remember to, honor my dreams and don't forget like, the dreams and
Just be
ambitions
authentic.
that I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just be yourself. I think
Yeah.
you're doing incredibly well, Kimmy, and I'm very
Aw.
grateful to have met you and have you in my life. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been really, really interesting talking to you. I think it's I've learned so much about you just by talking to you on this journey. I really appreciate it. And if
Aw.
people want to connect with you or find you, is it best place LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think best place would be
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So if you want
Thank
to see
you.
more about like the work that we're doing here
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
at IBM and HashiCorp, you can find me on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
I'll put your details with the podcast
Yeah.
description. Thank you so much, Kimmy.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Jenny. It was a huge pleasure, and I'm honored, so grateful to have met you as well and be on this podcast and be working with you all the time. But yeah, thank you
You're
so
most
much.
welcome. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Layered Lives. If this conversation resonated, I hope it gave you the space to reflect on your own layers. Until next time.